Welcome to another edition of Wired for Hybrid. My name is Pierre Roman. I'm joined as always with Mr. Michael Bender.
Hey, Pierre, how's it going?
It's good. It's good. It's been a while.
It has been a while.
It's been a while. The last couple months have been busy. Time off for health and vacation and so on. But we are back. And this month, we're going to cover uh, basically the last month and a half which has been quiet but still significant announcements. So stay tuned and we'll be right back. Okay, Michael, what is new in Azure Networking?
What is new in Azure Networking? So let's jump into that. So, got a few things on the board today that I think will be interesting for people. So, one of the first ones we have is general availability for the listener TLS certificate management inside of the Azure portal. So, we've talked about this before. If you're a regular listener of the show, you should probably know rule number one: Mike doesn't know how to manage certificates. So that is, for some reason, that is something that's always been the bane of my existence. And when I talk to many people out there, people probably listening, when you hear the word certificate, you're kind of like the hairs on the back of your neck, and you're like, oh, I got to deal with a certificate. We're making it easier for you. So we're
Okay,
making
good.
it easier for you to be able to manage instead of having to do it from the command line or, if
Yep.
you go back to Exchange 2007, remember you could only do certificates
In PowerShell.
in PowerShell.
Yep.
And so now with the GA release of this, when you're working with Azure Application Gateway,
Yep.
which, big refresher, remember that is our layer 7 gateway for your traffic,
Hmm.
because chances are you're going to be using TLS and you wanting to secure those with your certificates.
Yep.
Maybe they're stored in Key Vault. Maybe you're uploading them depending on the size of your organization. Now you can easily manage those through the portal. So, you can upload those, you can connect those, you can do all of that stuff through the portal, which is super cool. And one of the things that's nice is that when you go in, now you can actually see information about the certificate. So you can see the expiry date, you can see the common name, the thumbprint, and the issue name, which are all common and
Yep.
important things when you're working with certificates, that being able to see those, because if you're in one of those organizations where you've got hundreds of certificates and you're looking at the thumbprint names, you're like, okay, you're like one of the three stooges, and you're like, okay, which one of these do I pick?
Yeah.
That having all this information and being able to visually see it is going to make it much easier for administrators to be able to manage all of those and make sure that their uh, resources are secure.
I'm especially happy to see that we were exposing the expiry date because now you can build some kind of like workflow that a month before the expiry or 2 months before or whatever your um, area of comfort is, to have a process to either notify you that time is up, that you have to start looking at it, and you're
Yep.
not relying on all the users telling you that your cert has expired online.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I mean, how many times have we run across these of major incidents where it was an expired certificate that
Yep.
caused absolute mayhem? And I also think from, you think about this from your customers, not just our customers, but you out there listening, your customers. I think our customers are into the day and age where when they click on something and that little thing doesn't come up, it comes up with a question mark or whatever, they might not be clicking through that anymore like they may have been doing 3 to 5 years ago. So I think users are becoming more savvy. So we absolutely have to stay on that. We probably can't afford to have a month or two where we have an expired certificate. Even though things are still secured, that's still going to throw up that red flag. So that was a great call out. That I think that's super huge for a lot of administrators. Being able to see that, creating a workflow for that, and being able to get ahead of that and being proactive, because on this show, we love being proactive.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
So we've got that. Another thing for application gateway is application gateway for containers
Okay.
is going GA. So I believe they call it AGIC or something like that, or that might have been actually I think that's the previous term. That was the application gateway ingress controller. So basically, what we get with this release is you get the application layer, layer 7 of
Yep.
the OSI model, load balancing and dynamic traffic management capabilities that you would expect from application gateway, but for workloads that are running in your Kubernetes clusters.
Okay.
So this is an evolution of the application gateway ingress controller, or the AGIC, which is allowed to do similar, but really this is a this is an evolution of you being able to manage and control the load for your Kubernetes clusters and the resources that you're running on Kubernetes, because we know, as we know, many people are moving into that that the world of containers as opposed to just running on virtual servers. Not that I mean, I love me a virtual server. Don't get me wrong, but
Yep.
depending on how things are going and how you need to best administer your environment, containers are one of those things that it's not something that you know only the cool people are doing containers. A lot more people are moving to containers um, than before. So I think this is a great way for you to be able to do that. We also get support for custom health probes, URL redirection, also URL header rewrite. So many of the things that you would use on a traditional application gateway for managing the application traffic, you have available there.
Yep.
And it also brings, because this was in public preview, it does bring the production service level agreement, the SLA, that you would expect from a production workload. So you don't have to worry about the typical, oh, you're on public preview, you shouldn't be running this on production environment. There's no, all of that sort of thing. So now that it's generally available, SLAs go with it, and you're free to start working with this within your production environments.
Yep. Cool. Uh,
And
yeah, go ahead. Do you want me to take one, or are you gonna finish with the your last item?
why don't I finish out with a
Okay.
trifecta and then you can jump in? So the last one we have is a super quick one. Again, with application gateway in application V2, application gateway V2, we now have IPv6 support in general availability. So we've I think we've talked on a lot of the shows about IPv6, and you know, I mean, I remember back in the day when IPv4 is going away. You got to get on V6. And, it kept kind of dragging along, dragging along, dragging along. But where this really opens the door for organizations is that I think a lot of organizations, even though when you have your resources up in Azure, you can be using some pretty big address ranges.
Yep.
But as you start growing internally, you start eating up a lot of addresses. So you can run out of IPv4 addresses internally. So this really opens up the door for those organizations that have a really large footprint and are running out of networking IP address space, that this IPv6 is going to fit in there. And, basically future proofing, because, there could be a time in, like 10 years when both of us are sitting on a beach and we're watching the next Wired for Hybrid, and they start talking about, oh, what's this IPv4 thing that somebody was talking about the other day? I have no idea what that is. That day may come. That day's not here yet, but we are preparing for that. Definitely that continued movement into the IPv6 realm.
Yep.
So, what do you
For
got for us?
Yeah, I've got only two items on my end. The first one is about containers or AKS, and that's why I cut in a little earlier. Mostly because when Vinicius, one of my colleagues, went to KubeCon, he mentioned that the audience that he talked to there is more and more on the operations side versus strictly developers. So it's not just about developing application to now run on AKS and on containers, but it's now that those applications are production and mainstream, operations now needs to be able to manage them the way we manage other traditional workloads.
Yep.
So, one of the things that we have got GA now is a Microsoft open source project called Retina. It's a cloud native container networking observability platform. So it's kind of like this Azure Monitor type, but for networking within containers or within Kubernetes. It provides insights and actionable items in terms of um, latency, packet drop, all that type of information that you would normally collect in a traditional network to see if there's anything going on in there, but at the container level and at the container networking level. So Retina, it's open source project. It's built on NECNI, and it is available for use with Azure Kubernetes today. So that's really cool, especially if you're looking after an environment that has a workloads that are running in AKS or in containers.
Absolutely. I mean, that's great because I think one of the things that I hear from time to time, and it's one of the things that, it's the trade-off when people move up to the cloud, is that as you move up the different layers from having your own data center and managing the entire hardware to moving to a container where you're simply managing everything at the container level, which is basically whatever's installed inside that,
Yeah.
is that you lose parts of that. So this allow is really going to allow those customers, instead of having to rely on, oh, Microsoft's, maybe they'll let me know what's going on and why my application might be running slow and those sorts of things. This is going to allow them to get some of that insight that normally you wouldn't expect
Yep.
being at that container level. So I think this is a great tool for those, and I think it's one of those that it's been. You mentioned that was interesting, is that finally the ops is coming around for DevOps. So dev's been at the table for a long time, and they've been just waiting for ops to come along, which doesn't really surprise me that, KubeCon's been going on for a long time. We've been talking about Kubernetes for a long time. That it doesn't surprise me that more and more operations people are coming into the fold, because they're basically being forced to. Is that, their developers went, put the things out in the container, and now maybe you took a new job and you're like, ooh, now I got to manage this. This isn't like VMware, or this isn't like Hyper-V or Windows Server. This is something brand new. I need to figure this out.
Yeah, and
So
because it connects directly to the container network interface, it doesn't require any rewrite of the code of your application that's in it. So it works seamlessly across the CNI, across the OS, across the cloud provider, and not just Azure. It's broader than that, but it is something that if you're in operations and you have workloads using AKS and containers, something that you should definitely take a look at.
very cool.
Yep. And my last update, which is not really an update because we've talked about this before, is the Azure Virtual Network encryption. Uh, the end-to-end encryption is now available in more regions. So look below in the show notes for the blog article that will have a link to all of the additional regions. I'm not going to list them all. There's quite a few. But now we've got more and more coverage in terms of that end-to-end encryption.
Very
And
cool.
it's implemented to secure the traffic outside the physical boundaries that are not controlled by Microsoft. So, on behalf of Microsoft. So, it's applied from point to point to the underlying network hardware. So, it's encrypting all of your traffic from one VM to another and an end to end, regardless where they may be in your environment.
That's great stuff.
Yep.
Great
Not
stuff.
much, not much, but pretty soon we'll have 100% coverage. Well, I'm not when I say pretty sure, I'm not sure exactly when. They don't tell us those dates until it actually shows up. But every month I see that there's more and more regions that are added to that. So that's pretty cool.
Definitely. Definitely.
Yep. So I think this is it for the month. Thanks, Michael, for spending this time with us, and for you watching this. Keep track of this channel. We'll be posting more stuff. We're working on potentially some deeper drives and some technical content for this summer with the product group now that the planning for the next fiscal is almost done. And we want to make sure to cover the stuff that's interesting and pertinent to you. So leave us a comment below as to what we would like us to cover. And we'll make sure to get the appropriate engineering team to work with us and get you the answers that you need. So, like and subscribe so that you are notified for any content as we are publishing it. That being
Absolutely.
said, Mikey, thank you again for spending this time with me. This is always fun.
Absolutely, PR. And I just wanted to make a quick call out. It is only April, but next month is Microsoft Build. So expect from us in our next show, we're going to talk about what's the newest things in Azure networking, but we're also going to tell you if you're one of us, and we know who all of you are, we're going to give you the insight, our insight of what you should be looking out for at Microsoft Build.
Absolutely, because the session catalog has just been released, I believe, earlier this week.
Yep, I believe it is live. We'll leave you a link to that with the show notes as well, so you can check that out and you can get registered if you want to do it live. That's great. Otherwise, I believe it's hybrid as well.
Yeah, it's hybrid and it will all be available on demand.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Pierre. It's always great being on the show. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Cheers.